Dance with me. He's watching, said the black maid, unaware he was Mafia boss. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Tasha Williams stood in the corner of the grand ballroom, nervously adjusting the hem of her simple dress as she watched the elegant guests mingle and laugh. The glimmering chandeliers above reflected off the polished marble floor, and the soft hum of classical music filled the air. She was just one of many staff members, blending into the background, doing her best to stay unnoticed. As she made her way to the center of the room to serve drinks, she caught the eye of a man sitting at one of the VIP tables. His gaze was piercing, but she quickly turned her head, not wanting to attract attention. He's watching, Tasha whispered to herself, trying to shake off the feeling that someone had been observing her every move. Little did she know, the man she thought was just another guest was none other than Vincent Romano, the notorious Mafia boss, and he wasn't just watching, he was studying her. Vincent, known for his sharp mind and commanding presence, had made his way into the private event under the guise of a wealthy businessman, but his reasons were far more complex. He had been watching Tasha ever since she entered the room, intrigued by the way she carried herself with grace despite the clear discomfort of being in such a high-class setting. Unlike the other staff, who were used to this kind of environment, Tasha seemed different. Her eyes held a quiet strength, and there was something in the way she moved, an elegance that didn't belong to a mere servant. As she passed by his table again, Vincent's curiosity grew. He wasn't used to people, especially those in service, standing out in a crowd. He wanted to know more about her, but he kept his distance, maintaining the cool demeanor he was known for. Tasha, however, remained oblivious to his intense scrutiny. As the evening wore on, she tried to focus on her tasks, but the unsettling feeling of being watched never left her. It wasn't until much later that the unthinkable happened. During a moment when she had to step into the spotlight for a brief dance with a colleague, she heard a voice, low and commanding, whisper in her ear, "Dance with me, Tasha." It was Vincent, standing just inches away, his dark eyes locked onto hers. Her heart raced as she realized who he was, but she tried to hide her shock behind a forced smile. She had no idea what had just begun. Unaware of Vincent's true identity, Tasha hesitated for only a moment before accepting. She was, after all, caught up in the music and the moment, and she thought nothing more of the strange request. What she didn't know was that this dance would change everything, altering the course of both their lives forever. As they moved together, the eyes of the room shifted, but for Vincent and Tasha, the world outside them ceased to exist. The connection they shared in that moment was undeniable, but neither could have anticipated what would come next. Would Vincent's interest in Tasha lead to something more than just a passing moment? And how would she respond when the truth of who he really was finally came to light? I stood there, in Vincent's arms, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. His presence was undeniable, his steady gaze fixed on me as we swayed gently to the music. The soft sound of the violin and piano blended with the whispers of the guests around us. But in that instant, it was as if the entire world had faded away. I had no idea how we had gotten here, how a simple request to dance had led to this point. But I knew one thing for certain. This man was different from anyone I had ever met. His touch was firm yet gentle, commanding yet strangely comforting. It felt like the weight of his world was pressing down on me, but I didn't know why. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to his eyes, those dark, unreadable eyes that held something I couldn't quite grasp. As we danced, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial, something important about him. Who was this man really? He didn't look like just another wealthy guest. He carried himself with a quiet authority that commanded respect, and his every movement spoke of a power that seemed far beyond the scope of any ordinary businessman. I shifted slightly, trying to break the tension that was building inside me. I had worked as a maid for several months now, seeing my fair share of rich, entitled people, but Vincent was different. His calm composure, his unspoken strength, it all seemed to set him apart from everyone else in the room. For the first time since I arrived at the mansion, I felt an unfamiliar sense of unease. Not the kind of unease I felt when I was being looked down upon, but something deeper. Something that made my heart race faster than the waltz we were dancing to. I tried to focus on his words, but they seemed to drift away before I could fully understand them. "You're a good dancer," Vincent finally said, his voice low and steady. "You've got grace, Tasha. Something not many people can fake." My breath caught in my throat at the mention of my name. I hadn't realized he knew it. I couldn't stop myself from replying, my voice soft yet steady. "I've been practicing for years." He raised an eyebrow, an amused smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Practice?" he repeated, his voice laced with curiosity. "Seems to me like you were born with it." His words sent a wave of warmth through me, and I couldn't help but smile slightly. "I wasn't always this confident," I admitted, my voice quieter now. "I had to learn how to be, after all the years of being overlooked." He seemed to study me more intently then, his eyes softening slightly, though they still held the same intensity. "It's a shame," he said after a moment, his tone almost wistful, "that people only see you for what you do, not who you are." I had no idea what to say to that. It was an observation I hadn't quite expected from him. A man of such power, someone who could have anything and anyone, was suddenly talking about me like he understood what it was like to be invisible. The music seemed to slow down, and in that moment, everything felt suspended in time. The crowd faded, and I was left standing there with this man who had somehow managed to see through the walls I had built around myself. It felt like a strange connection, something I couldn't explain, but something I couldn't ignore either. For a brief moment, I almost forgot who I was, where I came from, and why I was even here. "What about you, Vincent?" I asked, my voice quiet, but filled with curiosity. "What's your story?" He didn't answer immediately, and for a moment, I thought maybe he wouldn't. But then he spoke, his voice low and full of something I couldn't quite place. "My story is complicated, Tasha," he said, his gaze never leaving mine. "But you don't need to know it. Not yet, anyway." The words were simple, but there was a weight to them that made my heart race again. What did he mean by not yet? And why did I feel like he was keeping something from me? I pulled back slightly, looking up at him with a mixture of confusion and intrigue. "Why not?" I asked, my curiosity finally getting the better of me. He smiled faintly, but the mystery in his eyes remained. "Because, Tasha, sometimes the truth can be more dangerous than the lies." I took a step back, the tension in the air thick as Vincent's words lingered in my mind. "The truth can be more dangerous than the lies," he had said. I couldn't help but wonder what he meant by that. He was a man of mystery, and for some reason, he seemed intent on keeping it that way. My heart was racing, my curiosity gnawing at me, but I could tell that pressing him for answers wouldn't do me any good. "What's so dangerous about the truth?" I asked, my voice quieter now. I wasn't sure if I was ready for his response, but the question had slipped out before I could stop myself. He paused for a moment, his gaze never leaving mine. There was a brief flicker of something in his eyes, something guarded, before he spoke. "Sometimes, the truth has consequences. Consequences you're not ready to deal with." His voice was steady, but there was a weight behind his words, something that made my pulse quicken. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I could sense that whatever he was hiding, it was important. And it had to be something big. I wanted to ask him more, to press him for answers, but I could feel the shift in the atmosphere around us. It wasn't just the words he was saying. It was the way he was looking at me, the intensity in his gaze that made me feel like I was being pulled into his world, a world I didn't fully understand. "I think I'll leave it at that for now," he said, breaking the silence. "But just know that not everything is as it seems." I nodded, trying to digest his words. It was clear that Vincent was a man of many layers, and each layer was more complicated than the last. But what struck me the most was how he made me feel, like I was part of something bigger than myself, even if I didn't fully understand it. I wasn't sure what was going on between us, but I couldn't ignore the pull I felt toward him, the undeniable connection that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. I wanted to know more about him, but part of me feared what I might uncover. As the music continued to play softly in the background, I felt a sudden wave of uncertainty wash over me. I had always been invisible in the world I came from, just another face in the crowd, a maid among the rich and powerful. But now, standing here with Vincent, it felt like everything had changed. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Vincent's eyes softened slightly, though his expression remained unreadable. Now, we take it one step at a time, he replied, his tone still calm but tinged with something that felt almost protective. But be careful, Tasha. The world you think you know is about to change. His words sent a shiver down my spine. What was he trying to say? And why did it feel like I was standing on the edge of something I wasn't ready to face? I had no answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer just a maid in the background. I was part of something much bigger, and whether I liked it or not, I was already in too deep. As the night wore on, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that the game had changed, that Vincent had just opened a door to a world I wasn't prepared for. But it was too late to turn back now. Whatever came next, I would face it head-on, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. I stood there, trying to process what Vincent had said. His words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. I had always thought that my life, though difficult, was predictable. I knew my place, my role. But now, after just a few moments with him, everything felt uncertain. The quiet confidence he exuded had unsettled me in ways I couldn't explain. As I stood beside him, the crowd around us seemed to blur, fading into the background. It was just Vincent and me now. You've changed things, Tasha, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. I looked up at him, surprised. What do you mean? I asked, trying to understand. Since the moment I met you, I can't stop thinking about you, he said, his gaze unwavering. It's not just your grace, or the way you move. It's something deeper. You're not like the others. His words made my heart race. I had never imagined someone like Vincent could be so open, so vulnerable. I had always seen him as the powerful, untouchable Mafia boss, but in that moment, I saw a different side of him, a side that felt oddly familiar, as if he had been through struggles of his own. I never meant to make things complicated, I said, my voice almost breaking. I'm just a maid, Vincent. I don't belong in your world. He shook his head, his expression softening. That's where you're wrong, Tasha, he said. You belong here as much as anyone else. And you've already made a bigger impact than you realize. I could feel my pulse quickening as I processed his words. What did he mean by that? Was he saying that he saw something in me that no one else did? The idea seemed impossible, but the look in his eyes told me otherwise. He wasn't just being polite, he meant it. But what did that mean for me? For us? I don't know if I'm ready for any of this. I confessed, my voice trembling slightly. Everything has changed so quickly. He smiled softly, a hint of understanding in his eyes. Change is inevitable, Tasha. And sometimes, it's exactly what we need. I didn't know what to say. The confusion I had felt before was now replaced with a quiet curiosity. I wanted to understand him, to understand the world he lived in. But I also feared what it might mean for me. Vincent was a man of power, a man who lived in a world I could never truly be a part of. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't want to stay in the background forever. Maybe it was time for me to step out of the shadows and into the light. The music around us faded as I looked up at Vincent again, wondering what would happen next. His expression was unreadable, but there was a glimmer of something in his eyes, something that made me believe that this was just the beginning. Are you ready to take that first step? Vincent asked, his voice low but firm. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was no longer just about a dance or a fleeting connection. It was about something more, something that could change both of our lives. Yes, I said, my voice steady, though my heart raced. I'm ready. And with that, I knew that whatever came next, I was in it, head first, without looking back. I could feel the weight of his words lingering in the air, the decision I had made settling deep within me. Vincent was right. Change was inevitable. It was the one constant in life, and now, it was happening to me in ways I hadn't expected. Standing there, with the music still softly playing in the background, I realized that I was about to step into a world far beyond anything I had ever known. As Vincent looked at me, something in his gaze made my heart beat faster. There was an intensity in his eyes, a certainty that made me question everything I had believed about myself. You're not just a maid, Tasha, he said, his voice low and steady. You're more than that, and I think you know it. His words hit me harder than I expected. I had spent most of my life trying to stay invisible, trying to keep my head down and avoid attention. But now, standing here with him, it was clear that Vincent saw something in me I had never seen in myself. I'm just a woman trying to survive, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That's all I've ever known. Vincent shook his head slowly, as if he didn't quite agree. Survival is one thing, Tasha. Living, really living, is something else entirely. His words stirred something deep inside me, a longing I had buried for years. What did it mean to truly live? To step outside the confines of the life I had always known and embrace something more? I didn't have an answer, but I knew that with Vincent, the possibility of something more was real. You don't have to do this alone, he said, his voice softening. Whatever happens, I'll be with you every step of the way. There was a warmth in his words, a promise that made the walls I had carefully built around myself begin to crumble. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just a bystander in my own life. I had a choice, and with Vincent by my side, it felt like anything was possible. But even as the thought of a new beginning filled me with hope, I couldn't ignore the doubts creeping into my mind. What if this wasn't real? What if I was just another pawn in his world, another plaything for a man whose life was filled with danger and intrigue? I had seen enough to know that people like Vincent didn't make promises without expecting something in return. But as I looked into his eyes, I knew that I couldn't walk away. I was already in too deep. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. I don't know what's going to happen next. Vincent's gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw the vulnerability hidden beneath the mask he wore. Fear is natural, he said quietly, but it doesn't control you unless you let it. His words struck me in a way I hadn't expected. I had lived in fear for so long. Fear of rejection, of not being enough, of never being seen. But standing here, with Vincent, I realized that maybe it was time to let go of that fear. Maybe it was time to embrace the unknown. So what now? I asked, my voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling inside me. Vincent smiled, a small, knowing smile. Now, we move forward. Together. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that made my heart swell. With something I couldn't quite name. This was only the beginning. The beginning of something that could change everything. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it, with Vincent by my side. I woke up the next morning with a feeling I hadn't had in a long time. Hope. The sun was shining through the window, casting soft light across the room. I could hear the sounds of the mansion coming to life outside, the faint hum of staff preparing for the day ahead. But inside, things felt different. I felt different. Vincent's words from the night before echoed in my mind, his promise to stay by my side, to face whatever came next, together. It was strange how quickly everything had shifted. Just yesterday, I was an invisible maid in a world that didn't care about me. Today, I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about myself, about Vincent, and about the life I was living. I stood up and looked at myself in the mirror. Who was I becoming? Was I ready to embrace this new version of myself? The woman Vincent saw, the one he believed had potential beyond being just a maid. As I stood there, lost in thought, I heard a soft knock on the door. I turned and opened it to find a familiar face, Sophia, the head housekeeper. She gave me a quick, knowing glance before stepping into the room. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, her voice soft but firm. There's a meeting downstairs. Mr. Romano wanted you to join him. My heart skipped a beat at the mention of Vincent. I had barely seen him since last night, and the thought of facing him again made me both excited and nervous. Of course, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll be right there. Sophia gave me a nod and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts once again. As I quickly changed into the uniform I had grown so used to wearing, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nervousness settle in my stomach. What was this meeting about? What did Vincent want to discuss with me? I couldn't help but feel like I was on the edge of something big, something that would change my life forever. When I entered the downstairs office, Vincent was already there, standing by the window, looking out at the garden. He turned as I entered, his eyes locking onto mine with a quiet intensity that made my heart race. Tasha, he said, his voice calm and steady. I'm glad you could join me. I nodded, feeling my breath catch in my throat. Of course, Mr. Romano. What's this about? He motioned for me to sit across from him. Please, call me Vincent. We're past all the formalities now, aren't we? His words made my heart flutter, but I quickly regained my composure and sat down. Vincent, I said, testing the word on my tongue. It felt strange, yet familiar. So, what's going on? He smiled, a small, almost secretive smile, before sitting down across from me. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone serious but not unkind. "You've proven yourself to be more than just a maid, Tasha. I want to offer you an opportunity." My mind raced. An opportunity? What could he possibly mean? What kind of opportunity? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want you to become more involved in the business," he said, his gaze never leaving mine. "Not as an employee, but as someone who can help shape the future of what I'm building." My heart stopped for a moment. The business? The world Vincent lived in? I had always kept my distance from the inner workings of his life, afraid of what I might find. But now, he was offering me a place in it. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a maid. I don't know anything about business." Vincent leaned forward, his eyes softening. "You know more than you think, Tasha. You have a sharp mind, a strong will, and the ability to see things that others miss. That's why I'm offering you this chance. You have the potential to do so much more than you realize." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to run, to keep my distance from his dangerous world, but another part of me, the part that had always dreamed of more, wanted to take this chance, to step into the unknown and see where it would lead. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But I want to try. I want to be more than just what I am." Now, Vincent's smile grew, and for the first time, I saw a look of pride in his eyes. "That's all I needed to hear," he said, standing up and offering me his hand. "Welcome to the next chapter, Tasha." I walked out of the office, my mind racing with the weight of Vincent's words. The opportunity he offered was unlike anything I had ever imagined. For so long, I had lived my life in the shadows, doing the work no one else wanted to do, staying invisible in a world that overlooked people like me. But now, Vincent was offering me a chance to step into the light, to be part of something much bigger than myself. As I made my way through the halls of the mansion, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. What did this mean for me? What kind of world had I just agreed to enter? I had spent so many years being careful, never stepping out of line, always staying within my place. But now, it felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to jump into the unknown. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this kind of change. I had never imagined myself as part of Vincent's world, the world of power, influence, and danger. But as I thought about it more, I realized that I had already taken a step into that world the moment I met him. My life had already started to shift, and I had to decide whether to embrace it or run away. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something that would change everything for me. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Vincent kept his promise, involving me more in the business, showing me how things worked, giving me small tasks that pushed me out of my comfort zone. At first, I struggled to keep up. The world of business, the power dynamics, the decisions that had to be made, it was all so different from the simple life I had known. But Vincent was patient, guiding me through each step, teaching me what I needed to know. It wasn't long before I began to see things differently. The way people operated, the way Vincent made decisions, it was all strategic, calculated, and driven by something deeper than just money or power. There was a purpose behind everything he did, a plan that stretched far beyond what I could imagine. The more I learned, the more I realized that Vincent wasn't just a mafia boss. He was a mastermind, someone who understood the world in ways that no one else did. He wasn't just looking for power's sake. He was building something, creating a legacy, and now, he was offering me a chance to be part of that. But as the days went on, I also started to feel the weight of the responsibility that came with this new role. It wasn't just about making decisions or having power. It was about the consequences of those decisions, the people they would affect. I had always been a survivor, someone who did what was necessary to get by. But now, I was starting to see that survival wasn't the only thing that mattered. What really mattered was the impact I had on others, the choices I made, and how they shaped the future. One evening, as I sat in the office with Vincent, going over some reports, I looked up at him and found myself wondering what he was really thinking. He had opened a door for me, but I still didn't know what lay beyond it. "Vincent," I said, my voice steady but filled with curiosity, "why me? Why did you choose me?" He looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze softening just a little. "Because you have something others don't," he said quietly. "You see the world differently. You understand what it takes to survive, but you also understand what it means to fight for something more. His words hit me harder than I expected. I had always thought of myself as just a maid, just someone who got by, but now Vincent was telling me that I had something more to offer, something that made me stand out in a world full of people who were only focused on power and wealth. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I've never had to make decisions like this before. Vincent smiled, a small but knowing smile. No one ever is, he said, his voice low. But you will be. You're ready, Tasha. You just have to trust yourself. His words gave me something I hadn't had in a long time. Confidence. The confidence to step into this new role, to embrace the future that Vincent was offering me. The future that I had once been too afraid to even dream of. I walked into the mansion the next day, my mind still spinning with the enormity of Vincent's offer. What had started as a simple job had now turned into something much bigger, something I couldn't quite grasp. I had taken the first step into his world, and everything felt different. I was different. The power that Vincent exuded, the way he made me feel like I mattered in a world that had never cared about people like me. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. As I made my way down the hallway, I saw Vincent standing by the large glass window, his back to me as he looked out at the city below. He had that air of quiet authority, the kind that made you want to follow him without question. I hesitated for a moment before approaching him. Vincent, I called out, my voice tentative. He turned slowly, a small smile appearing on his face when he saw me. Tasha, he said, his voice warm but still commanding. Come in. I've been waiting for you. I stepped into the room, the weight of his gaze never leaving me. I'm ready, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure if I was. The words just came out. Vincent raised an eyebrow, clearly noticing my uncertainty, but he didn't press me. Instead, he gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, he said simply. As I took my seat, I couldn't help but notice the change in him. There was something different in the air now, something heavier. He wasn't the same man I had met that night at the party, the man who seemed so untouchable, so confident. Now, there was a quiet intensity to him, as though something was shifting beneath the surface. We need to talk about how things are going to change from here on out, Vincent began, his voice low but steady. The work I'm offering you isn't easy. It's not just about managing things behind the scenes. You're going to have to make decisions, and sometimes those decisions won't be easy. I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. I had known this would be hard. But hearing him say it out loud made the reality of the situation hit me like a wave. I understand, I said, even though a part of me wasn't sure if I did. But I need you to understand something, Tasha, Vincent continued, his gaze intense as he met my eyes. The choices you make from here on out will shape everything. You will have the power to make or break things, and I need to know that you're ready for that responsibility. His words were sharp, but there was no malice in them. He was challenging me, pushing me to see if I had what it took to step into this world fully. And as I sat there, looking back at him, I realized something. I wanted this. I wanted to prove to myself, and to him, that I was capable. I'm ready, I said again, this time with more certainty. Vincent studied me for a moment, as if he were assessing whether I truly understood what I was stepping into. Then, finally, he nodded. Good. You'll start tomorrow. There's a meeting with some key people I need you to attend. You'll be sitting in, learning how things are done. It's going to be a crash course, but I believe you'll be able to handle it. I felt a sense of determination settle within me. This was it. There was no turning back now. I won't let you down, I said, my voice firm. Vincent's smile softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of approval in his eyes. I know you won't, Tasha. I have faith in you. As I left the room, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility settling on my shoulders. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like an opportunity to finally step out of the shadows and take control of my own future. I didn't know where this path would lead, but I knew one thing. I was ready for whatever came next. I stood at the door to the meeting room, my heart racing. The moment I had been waiting for had finally arrived. This was it, the first day I would truly step into Vincent's world, the world that seemed so distant and unreachable just a few days ago. I wasn't just the maid anymore. I was part of something bigger, something that could change my life in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was filled with people, men and women in sharp suits, all deep in conversation. They looked up as I entered, and I could feel their eyes on me, assessing me, evaluating my place in this new world I had just entered. I felt the weight of their gaze, but this time, it didn't intimidate me. I straightened my back, squared my shoulders, and walked confidently into the room. Vincent was at the head of the table, his presence undeniable, as always. He gave me a slight nod as I approached, and I took my seat next to him. The room fell silent, as everyone looked to Vincent for direction. "This is Tasha," Vincent said, his voice calm and authoritative. "She's going to be joining us moving forward. I trust you'll all treat her with the respect she deserves." There was a brief pause, and then everyone nodded. It wasn't the warmest welcome, but it was enough. They knew that with Vincent's endorsement, I had a place here. As the meeting continued, I listened carefully, taking in every word, every detail. The discussions were sharp, quick, and often tense. Business decisions, strategies, plans for expansion, all of it was discussed with a level of intensity one had never seen before. I took notes, absorbing as much as I could. Vincent occasionally glanced over at me, his eyes watching me closely, but he never said anything more. It was as if he wanted me to learn on my own, to understand the intricacies of the world I was now a part of. After the meeting, Vincent asked me to stay behind. The others filtered out, leaving us alone in the room. "How do you feel?" he asked, his tone low but not without a touch of concern. "It's a lot to take in," I admitted, looking down at my notes. "But I think I can handle it." Vincent nodded. "I know you can. You're more capable than you give yourself credit for." I met his gaze and smiled faintly. "Thank you, Vincent." He stood up, walking over to the window. "I don't expect you to have all the answers yet," he said, his voice thoughtful. "But I want you to trust yourself. You have the skills, Tasha. You just need to believe in them." His words were a quiet encouragement, a reminder that I had more to offer than I realized. As I sat there, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I was starting to see that Vincent's belief in me wasn't just about what I could do for him. It was about what I could do for myself. He wasn't just showing me how to be part of his world. He was showing me how to shape my own future. I wasn't just following orders anymore. I was making decisions, taking control. And that was a feeling I had never known before. The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings, decisions, and constant learning. Vincent kept me close, involving me in more and more aspects of the business. Every day, I felt myself growing, becoming more confident, more capable. I was starting to trust myself, to trust my instincts. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I doubted myself, when the weight of the responsibility felt too heavy to bear. But with Vincent by my side, I never felt alone. He didn't just teach me the business. He taught me how to navigate the complexities of the world he had built. And with every step, I felt myself becoming a part of that world, not just as an observer, but as someone who could shape it, just as he had.